Are you staying
Good
screen?
morning, good afternoon, and good evening for another very special edition of WOWSA Live with three very special guests. Ned.
Hello, my name is Ned Denison. I'm the chairperson of the International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame. Just seems a few months ago that we were down in Melbourne for an incredible induction and award ceremony. First time I met Dick. He's sitting there on one side of that screen, and the executive committee member, IMSHUF honoree, Mel Cunningham, is also sitting with him. Normally I give an overview of somebody like Dick's background, but since Mel was there, it might be nice to hear it from her.
So it's my great pleasure to introduce Richard Dick Campion, who is a legend of the open water swimming world. He was a swimmer himself, so he represented England in the Olympics in 1960 and then moved across to Australia and became an open water swimmer and himself, and then went on to lead Australia through the heydays of open water swimming, where Australia dominated the world. And it was his leadership with Chris Gesden who really spearheaded that domination. And more importantly, he was well, I don't think it's more important than that, but to me, he was my coach, and together we won 2 world championships together. And Dick with his wife Jackie are my adopted parents. They've taken me on, whether they like it or not. I'm part of their life forever, and they're part of my life. So it's with great pleasure. I'm looking to hear some of these stories, some that I've heard before and some are going to be new to me. I'm really looking forward to this interview and hearing all about Dick's amazing achievements and what he's done for open water swimming. So I'll leave it in the great hands of Ned and Dick, and take it away.
All right, thank you.
Dick, we're going to have you slide over perfect into the middle of the screen. Tell us about your pool swimming and bring us up to and including the Olympics.
Okay, all right. Well, a little bit of background to that. We lived in North London, and we're about 4 minutes from the walking speed to the pool, local pool. And my mother, as a child, got into swimming when she learned to swim when she was 9 years of age, and she became schoolgirl champion of London when she was 12. And then my grandfather thought this was not good, seeing these young girls going around in such short stuff and whatever at the time. So she took up tennis, and that was the end of that career. But she just wanted me to be able to learn to swim. Well, it didn't take long. I used to walk around to the local swim pool by myself, but she had a guy teach me to swim, which took probably 1 or 2 classes, because I knew how to float, but it was it was getting the arms over, etc. and that. But anyway, we took through to that, went through that quite readily, and local councils, they were very much oriented to looking after the population, and with a swimming pool, they had their own swimming club, a council swimming club, would you believe? And if every school child in the district was tested each year annually to a certain standard, and if you could dive down and pick a halfpenny up off the bottom of, oh no, not a halfpenny, it was they had a rubber brick. Pick that up. You could swim across the pool on your back, kicking legs only, and then you could do 100 meters freestyle. You got this free pass entry to the pool for a year. Well, I went with that for, when I look down, I'm trying to think how many years. It finishes when you finish school, so I finished school in 17, so I never paid for a swim lesson or swim class going there at all, except going to club nights and whatever. But yeah, it was just great, and I just grew up with this club. And if you did any good, you started to do competition, which I gradually got into. And it was just just a normal transition of just moving up and amongst the age groups, which we did, and that was fine. Then what can I say? I was going to sort of, whoops, if I can, no, I can't do that. Well, look at it here. yeah, going through that that experience, scouts, they had swim meets. There was always something going on that way in swimming that I could get into, and I started to achieve quite readily. But not, there's a lot of friends in the swim club in my age group that could sort of wipe the floor with me. But when it came to doing something more than 100 meters, that's when it was discovered that yeah, I could kick on it. And I remember a coach getting into technical things and getting people's pulse rates, and him yelling at me that, you know, you've just done 100 meters hard, right? And it's 90. Your heart rate is 90. You've got to get it up higher than this. Well, I mean, I didn't know anything about that, so I just try and swim harder and whatever, and it never really got above 90. And from then on, it was worked out that perhaps I'd be better doing 200 meters instead of 100, which I did do, and then maybe a 400. And then once we got into 400s, I remember the first year I swam a 400 and got walloped in it because I didn't know when to go and when not, to take it steady. And the fact and then the next time I did a 400, I knew exactly what to do, and from then on, it was pretty good in freestyle for me. But suddenly, butterfly came on the scene, and butterfly dolphin, not breaststroke leg kick. Oh my God, this is something wonderful, which was great because I could do that. I took off onto that game quite well, and up suddenly came the trials for the 58 Commonwealth Games, and it was 200 butterfly, and coach said to me, righto, he said, off you go, you're going to go and have a crack at this. So we tried a couple of 200s fly, and it didn't seem to bother me. I could do the distance. I don't know how fast I was going to go. Anyway, we went to the first trial to get into the main trial, and I won that. And my coach, who was one of the pool staff, office pool staff management, and he'd come down and take us at certain times, throughout the day or throughout the week. And he said, listen, whenever you come to the pool, I want you to do as many 400 butterflies as you can do, say with 30 seconds rest, okay? Yeah, righto. And I went like that for the next 3 weeks or so, and tapered a bit for it, and swam into the Commonwealth Games team, and in actual fact made the final, came 5th in the final. So that was a bit of a giggle, and that was that with freestyle. And I came off of there. We came back from Cardiff, and got back. It was quite funny. Once you'd finished swimming, they didn't want you to stay in the games village. Right, get going. So got back, and glad you're back. We've got the Southern Counties Mile on Monday, a long weekend. Oh, okay. So I went to that, and it was heats and finals in the same day for the 1 mile, I won that. So it sort of started to come out that perhaps freestyle and distance was my go, and so like the coach that I had, he came to retirement, and our club champion, a guy called Alan Heim, was a representative at one stage for Britain for 200 meters breaststroke, and I walked in awe of this guy, and he started chatting to me, and I thought, wow, this is just fantastic. Well, he took over coaching, and he said, look, let's forget about butterfly. You can do that if you feel like it, whenever, but freestyle is your go. All right, and we're going to concentrate on doing 400s and 1500s. And as it transpired, that it was the 1500 that sort of I could just keep on going at that time in those eras, and that was good. So the the 1500 meters on the long weekend Monday when I got back, as I say, I won that, and then we carried on concentrating on it, and got right into it. And in 1959, that was a quiet sort of year, but one with lots of water polo, lots of training and just growing up with it all, and seeing more and more of Alan, and then which was at club nights, but then he was making time of a lunchtime, and I was working then, and lunchtime I used to meet up with him, and we'd go to a pool in a place called Nine Elms, and it was terrific because it was a very cold pool, and it was a 50-yard pool, not 50 meters. It was a 50-yard pool, but it was great to give you training for the open, not so much open water, but in the longer course and being in competition. So got right into that, and we trained very hard in there. And well, we had the following year, the first trial came up for the GB team, and I made that. And then we had another trial later on in the year, and which we were building up to, which was the trial for the Olympics. And surprisingly, I made the 400. Qualified for the team for the 400 freestyle. And later on that day, we had the 1500 trial, and it sounds flash, but I won it by over 50 meters. And my main competition, he got caught by a Scots guy, and it just blew him away, and he just sort of gave up on the way and just plopped on in, and which was a shame because he and I were great mates, and I thought he was going to go to the Olympics with me, but he didn't get selected. Anyway, did a lot of training with for the Olympic team, but not as a team. We only ever met up just to do different internationals leading into it for 2 or 3 days. And then we went to the Olympics, and we got there about 3 weeks beforehand, which was good. And I had a good taper to it. And I did really well in the heats, and I made the final. I was swimming in lane 6, so I think that made me the, I don't know, 5th or 6th fastest qualifier. But and I know it sounds like I'm using an excuse, but the day of my swim, day of the final, there was only myself and one other guy staying in the village, in the Olympic village, because he was crook and couldn't get out and about, and I shouldn't have all this energy sapping, touring around and having fun with the other kids. And it was as boring as sobs, being by myself, going to the pool by myself, doing what I call the taper. And when I got to the pool, I couldn't lift it. It was well, anyway, cut a long story short, I was stone motherless last, and I was terribly disappointed in that. In my effort, but I just couldn't raise a gallop, and it was then really, I suppose, I started to realise that the mental attitude to competition really had to come into it, because most of the other competition I was all excited and happy. This I wasn't. I was just as flat as a pancake. Anyway, leaping forward 2 years for the 62 European Games. I felt really good, and I was happy, and everything was going fine, and it was just great. And again, to cut a long story short, I did a PB. It seems silly at this stage, but I did I think it was 4:31.4 for the 400 freestyle, and I was really happy with that. And then it came to the 1500, made the final. And I wasn't going to give that away at all. I was going for that for broke. And there was a guy, a Hungarian boy, really good, called Joseph Katona. And he was the boy I was after. And away we went. Well, he won. That was okay. But I was determined. There was no one going to come between he and I. And over the last, I think it was about the last 400, suddenly someone came into my sight, and it was a Spanish boy catching up to me, and he managed to touch me out. But nonetheless, I got third in the Europeans, and that was pretty good stuff for me, and I felt that was really good. From then on, things sort of quietened down for me. I was getting older, and normal things were happening. That and I was still swimming like mad, just being it all, but not the intensity. So during the 15 years between 1960 and 75, I did carry on training. Swimming was my life, but in amongst all that, I met my lovely wife, Jackie, and after 18 months, we got married. 6 days later, we sailed for Australia. We came to Australia and things changed, and because that was my Mecca. The Australians.
Did she know? Did she know before you married that you were going to Australia? Or did you surprise her?
No. It was quite funny, really. I mentioned it, and she leapt at the chance. She always wanted to travel, and when we told her parents, she said about going to Australia, and Jackie's mother said, "Yeah, I always knew you were going to do something like that." And I thought, well, perhaps meeting Dickie, this will be good. But I must insist on one thing. And she looked at me, she said, "I want you to be married before you go." So I didn't even have to propose. But anyway, that was just another.
Had you done any open water swimming at that point?
Yes, but nothing. What could I say of any distance? There was the Lloyd's insurance offices used to put on some river swims, and I did did those, and I learned a very important lesson. And I was leading in one of the river swims. Well, I won most that I went into. But there was Johnny Martin Dye used to swim for GB in the 400 as well. So there was great competition between us, especially in the river. But I always took over in the second half. Anyway, there was a large bend in the river. So I decided to cut that bend. And I just went into still water, and he stayed out in the middle with the flow, and I came in about 50 meters behind him. And I was quite shocked at that, but I've never forgotten that, and I stay in the main current. Go through on that, but then the going on to open water, coming out to Australia, that was pretty big time. And I met up with a guy who was really interested in it, and you might know Chris, but Chris Gesden, and he wanted to be an open water swimmer, and he and I used to do a fair bit, but Chris wanted to get organised all the time and look into different things, and he'd look up the swims, and off we'd go and do these. And the first person I came across to me of any note was John Kinsella. And John's
bad guy to come up against when you're a competitive swimmer.
Yes.
That was a bad choice, Dick.
Yeah, it was. I mean, he was that quick, I couldn't even tell you what size shoes he wore. He was just gone. And we went to Canada, and there was lots of different, like each town used to put on a swim. You probably know all of this as well, but they put on a swim, and people would gather in and coming from other towns in to see it all. And I remember Jenny Anderson and I were swimming for Australia, and we formed a team, and Chris was handling for us, and we went
Le Turc.
That's it. Went there and did it was a third of a mile course, and you swam that, as you know, for 24 hours in relay form. And I remember it was something like sort of 2 a.m, and Gazzy comes down to the shoreline to meet me, because I was going to be swapping over with Jenny. And he said, listen, mate, he said, Jenny's crook for a while. He said, you better just carry on swimming until I tell you to stop. And so I did another 4 laps going around, and I keep going. And then I did another 4, and Jenny was back. She was starting to feel good for that. And so we carried on, and we came in 5th, the pair of us, and we thought that was pretty good. That was terrific. Then, I'm trying to think, the next swim I did was a 10K swim, and at every odd point, there were certain points along the line, you had to be like in the first lot, you had to be in the first 20. Then the next time in place, you had to be in the first 15. And I know I did that, but I think it was down to the 10K point. And I was so convinced that I was swimming so well, but next minute out comes the hook and hooked me out the water. So I never made the finish of that. So that it was declared that was too short for me, and I had to stay on the distance stuff. But then, yeah, I was getting on, and as I say, we were in Australia by then, and I applied successfully. I'd written to Clarence Swimming Club in Hobart. They were on the eastern shore to see if I could coach for them, because I'd come across this ad for them for looking for a coach, and we got to Sydney. And I'd heard back from them, and they said, "Yeah, come on down and whatever." And and I didn't realise that. In fact, sounds terrible, but I just did not know it was an island swim, Tassie. Anyway, we made it down there and met the people, met the committee, had plenty of chatting, and they were a lovely social crowd. And they said, "Well, you better come for a swim. Come on down to the pool," and went down to the pool, and it was a lovely pool. But because they had so much power there, hydro scheme, it was electrically heated, a 50-meter open air pool. And God knows how much it cost to run it, but anyway, it was done there, and it was just marvelous being there. And then I said, "Oh yeah, okay. So when do I meet up with club? When do we meet up with the members?" "Oh, that won't be, till about August." And I said, "Why is that?" And they said, "Well, the pool closes next week for 6 months." And I thought, what on earth am I going to do? But anyway, we scrambled through the year, then started coaching, and Jackie and I had 6 beautiful years in Tasmania, and we had so much fun and such a good time. And I coached a lot of people. And the first year of coaching, Clarence from nowhere came out, and we were the top club in the state. So I felt justified, and it was good. And I was still doing. I was coaching professionally, but the only thing I was allowed to do was I could swim the belt race in surf lifesaving, and that was the only event I could do without affecting anyone else's professionalism. So so I did that, and the only one I ever won was that I had the longest run out the way the beach was, and the others were swimming, and I was still running. So that was that was good. But there we go. All right.
Dick, tell us about these golden years of Australian marathon swimming. I'm interested in all of the elements that came together. Coaching and the talent and the budgets and the travel and the camaraderie and.
Oh gosh, look. I need Chris Gesden be here with me on this, because he would come up with more detail than I. But okay, we made Australian swimming aware of what we were doing, and then we go along to the 6 monthly meetings of all the coaches, the Coaches Association, but also Australian swimming committee meetings. And Johnny Devitt was on the committee, and he and I hit it off well. Okay, but he was in Sydney and we were in Hobart. But he knew that Chris and I were trying to get something going in open water, and it was moved and agreed that at committee level that I'd be national coach, because I was pushing for it, and there was no other coaches talking about it in Australia. And we then had trials to go to pick a team. Well, we'd unearthed a wonderful swimmer, who was already world champion, which was Shelley Taylor. She came Shelley Taylor Smith. She'd married Pete Smith, but unfortunately that didn't last terribly long. But she still had the name, and she was Shelley Taylor Smith. And she was the main swimmer that we built the team around at that time. And we then had another, and for the men, we had a wonderful guy, comedian, wonderful swimmer, David O'Brien. And we went off and we went to the first, which was in Perth, World Swimming Championships. And I'm pretty certain David pulled third, got the bronze medal in that. And that was pretty pleasing. But yeah, and that gathered momentum. I'm trying to think then, like, I'm not giving you much detail, but it was building. It was something new. And but a lot of the coaches didn't accept it because that was what the oldies did. It was distance swimming and just the old people would do this. But it was being picked up more and more by the youngsters that felt they'd want to do it. And the next thing with our age group swimming, suddenly it was, opened up for that. And Australia took off quite well with that. And it was state championships, and national championships with open water swimming, and it stayed that pretty much that, right through. I can't give you great detail on that because shortly after all this, or in amongst it all, I had the good fortune to get myself into a swim school and ownership of the pool, and I was a part owner of it. Eventually I owned it all, and that's how I can retire. But yes, we as I say, we came to Australia in 1965, and I retired from coaching in, I gotta think now, I think it was not 2004. Yes, it'd be something like 2004. And I thought, well, I've had a good stint at that, and Jackie thought it'd be a good idea to retire so we could get going with, other things that we wanted to do. So, why? I'm just looking here at my notes. As I say, it was new to Australia, the open water, but there's a certain psyche in Australians. It's a challenge, and it wasn't just a race, it was a challenge as well as a race. And that's what sort of attracted the attention of it. And that's why, I just felt it was going to take off here in Australia. And there's always good numbers enter into it. And there's so many open water races in Australia around the country. And oh, crikey.
How much did the surf lifeguarding help you folks? I mean, it seemed when I go to Australia, every kid and their brother and sister is a surf lifeguard and competing.
Yes.
In surf events.
Oh, yeah. That is huge. That is really huge, and that we attracted people from. And when I say we, Australian swimming attracted people from open water swimming in that, because they always had the flags, right? The racing out to the flag to your pool boy, to your buoy, as they call it here, your colour buoy. There was a race, and there'd be 6 in each heat going out for the whatever, and then the finalists would have another race, and then they'd award medals from there. And through that, people started getting into this at a young age, at 12 years of age, to do this, and then from there, suddenly it was something for a bit of a fundraiser for a swim club to put on, say, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mile race, or 5K race, as it eventually came to, and then it would step up to the 10Ks, and on the occasion we'd have the national 25K race. But it appealed to the country so much, and there was just hundreds to choose from, and though many didn't bother about going interstate for national championships and whatever, so there we could have lost a lot of people along the way that might have come up and been pretty good. But needless to say, any state that had someone doing well, usually their state committee people would encourage them to come along. But it was a main drag for people to, to do the interstate. It was a cost. And also parents were pretty defensive of the children, that they didn't want them to stress out and do these distances. And so there was a call back on that. But nonetheless, it still appeals to Australians, and it is just still really, really important to them.
Last question for you, Dick.
Yeah, go on.
Last question. You were an elite pool swimmer, Olympics. You were an elite professional in some of the big Canadian races. You then coached a national team to massive success, and you retired. Looking at the sport today, with a massive focus on the 10K and the Olympics, what are the 3 or 4 best changes, and what are the 3 or 4 things maybe you wish hadn't changed so much?
Well, I was a bit disappointed that it should be 10K, and but nonetheless, it is such, to me, it is just such an exciting event. The 10K, it's just marvelous, and you see so many things going on, and then like within the race, and the psyche being dealt in there, and suddenly you get someone who'll hit the front. And, and I'm saying to myself, watching it all, I might be watching on TV. No, don't do this. Don't lead out. Stay with the strength of the pack. Just be dragged along by them. Don't try and lead, because the pressure's on you. And sure enough, they get wound back, and it's always down to that last K, and probably it gets into the 500 meters to go, and then it's 400, and then it's on for hell for leather. And it's just amazing when you see that wall of swimmers coming for that line, and you think, after all that distance, there they are going bang, 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 finishing. And often it has to be videoed, the finish, but yeah, it's the 10K is the best selection. Yeah, and it lets the shorter swimmers, like distance swimmers, build up for that, and it gets the people who like to do the 25s more to concentrate more on getting some fast swimming done, and it's just marvelous. I keep looking down here for notes on what to say, but
so we have a lot of swimmers from the early days that say, come on, it's in a boat basin. Bring them out to the ocean, make it point to point, give them a boat with their name on it. Forget this pack stuff. Let them try to cut that corner a little short and see if there's still water or back eddy. Put a bit of that 25K plus excitement back into it as well.
Yes, yeah. Well, I remember one time, this is going against what I should have been doing, but Mel was swimming, Melissa Cunningham, and I was coaching her, and we were doing A-OK. We're doing really well. And there she was in the middle of the pack, but not the leaders of it, just swimming behind them, but right in, people behind her. And it was this tight pack of about 15 people. And we missed a feed, which concerned me a bit. And we're going on, but I didn't take too much notice that others weren't feeding either. And although I'd see some sort of stop and do it, and it took them a long while to come back up. Anyway, I made a point of calling her out and giving her a feed, and she gave me the greatest tongue lashing at the time to pull her out from there. But nonetheless, she worked her butt off and got back into the crowd, and that took a lot of, whatever. But I remember she did very well there. And I remember another occasion when it was in her first year of training with me, and it was the national championships, and there was the 25K was on, and she cleared right out from the girls. She was way ahead, and in fact, there was only, I think, Dave O'Brien, another swimmer in front of her. But I've got a photo of it somewhere here. I held up the notice board. You write up on the whiteboard, give them hold it up so they can see it and read it. Take a while to read it. And coming towards us was a small dinghy with 3 of the officials in it. And my message to her was, "Look good. The selectors are coming alongside." And so the elbows went up. She had a nice high stroke, and anyway, she was very well respected for that. And I got a lot of glory off of that, and it was a lot of fun. But then when Mel started to take it a bit easy, it left me to concentrate very, very much on my swim school. And so that took over, and that sort of quietly drifted away from the sport. And yes, it was great missing it. Love to go and watch it, be part of it. I remember one year I swam at Manly Dam. Goodness knows why I wanted to do it, but I forget the distance I did. It was either 15K or 20K. But I was 39 at the time and thought, well, let's give it one more go, which was stupid. But anyway, it's there in you, and even now, I can't but for here in Victoria, Melbourne, we get our cool winters. But once it comes to summer, I can't help it. I just got to go down and do have a regular type swim in the ocean between 2 of the jetties, which is about, when I worked it out, when driving the car on the trip meter, I made it just over a K. I could do either 2 laps or 4 laps. The point being, if I finished up, in an odd lap, it meant I had to walk back. So that was stupid. So I had to swim back, and I thought that's making me work.
Dick, thank you very, very much for your time tonight. I especially want to thank you because you adopted Mel. You turned her into a world champion swimmer, and then we've taken advantage of it. She's been on the executive committee of IMSHELF for the last couple of years and just been a super contributor. So I give you all the credit. I give you all the credit.
Well. Yeah, I do enjoy that. I enjoy her company a lot. Jackie and myself, my wife and myself enjoy her company, and the enthusiasm that comes, it just like she sheds it off to people all around her, and can't speak highly enough of her. And thanks for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Dick.